Alan Waters from Baptist Care, the General Manager of Residential there, has asked, is LDK concerned about regulatory risk? It looks like a lot like an aged care home run with home care funding plus private fees. How certain are you that you won't fall under the residential aged care regulatory process at some future stage? And I should mention that Byron is a solicitor, so he's the right man to ask this question.
Regulatory risk exists for everyone, and we get asked that question a lot. I don't feel that it's a huge risk. The aged care standards were changed to have the broad 8 standards of care from the difference between home care standards and RAC. We had a full audit last year, deep dive audit of our village at Sydney, and went through our model in detail with the Aged Care Quality Commission. They understood it and understood that it's genuinely a home care model. It feels with the move that's happening, particularly with the introduction of SIRS to home care, that it is all going to probably come under the one sort of regulatory regime. We're prepared for SIRS. All of our risk management was built around SIRS coming into home care. If home care package increases or we have care being agnostic to accommodation, then we'll be able to adapt to that. We have a very strong governance framework, and we'll be able to adapt to any changes. We have a lot, being in Canberra, we're at the back door of a lot of regulatory bodies, and we have them visit a lot to understand our model and understand what we are doing. We haven't had one of the department people indicate that it looks like RAC and it smells like RAC, therefore it must be a RAC, because when you look at our business and visit our business, and Chris has been there, it's a very, very vibrant, independent feel about the place. It's not a residential feel. Even when you go into our more high levels of care, our secure dementia obviously is something that's probably closest to the feeling of a nursing home, but we operate our secure dementia under 24/7 care under the Retirement Villages Act with home care funding, and that has passed muster as well. So yes, it's a risk, and we don't discount it, and we address it. It sits within our risk register, and we'll adapt if we need to, but it doesn't feel like it's heading that way.
We might pass on then on to Stuart. With your clients, are you advising that they might have regulatory risk if they pursue assisted living?
They certainly need to take it into consideration, Chris, with their planning around this, and that's the I guess for any one of them, the providers, its concern is making sure they're aware of those things going in, and that's I guess the uncertainty for them. But yeah, there's absolutely a risk there for them.
So thank you, Stuart. Paul, do your clients who are going into assisted living, where does regulatory risk sit with them? And they're brief to you.
Yeah, well, it's certainly high on their agenda, and they ask that the tools that we provide them and the workflows that we enable for them provide them with the right solutions and the right data and the right information in order to make informed decisions, regardless of where they take their business model. So I certainly see that we are an enabler to help providers make the right decisions and navigate through the regulatory environment. So yes, to answer your question, it's certainly high on their agendas.
We have another question from Lee Martin at Tanunda Lutheran Homes. How soon will it be that the RV Act is changed to ensure all care or services meet an accredited level at a reasonable price? So let me repeat that. How soon will it be that the RV Act is changed to ensure all care or services meet an accredited level at a reasonable price? Who would like to respond to that question?
Byron?
Maybe the relevant government departments. Having said that, I don't think from a compliance perspective, a retirement villages amendment would place any further obligation on us than our compliance obligations that currently exist under the Aged Care Act as an approved provider. I think that the question is sort of directed at making sure that we don't have operators coming in and just sort of flagrantly delivering private care outside of the confines. So I would certainly welcome compliance obligations on anyone providing care and a consistent set of standards to anyone providing care in that setting, whether it's home care funded or privately funded.
I've now got a question from Deborah Ward. Hi, Byron. I assume a lot of your residents would pay an income-tested care fee through the government-funded model. Do you have a problem collecting this?
No, we don't have a problem collecting it, and we comply with all the requirements that we have in relation to that.
Phil, do you have any challenges?
If you can hear me.
We can hear
no,
you.
not really, because we work just with home care packages, so we don't work through the aged care process at all. So if a person doesn't have a home care package or they don't want to pay privately, then we don't get involved in, if you like, your standard aged care or that's delivery of care or the billing. So our guys either pay privately, and a good percentage of our residents do that. They choose that they don't want to have a means test. They don't like people looking under their skirt, and then the balance will work through their home care package. But we don't deal with in any way aged care, high care packages, if you like, through the aged care system.
That's an interesting question. So so a number of your clients, what percentage of your clients kind of apply for home care packages and just prefer to pay privately?
We have about 30% that pay privately, 40% that go through their home care packages, 20% don't need any care, and we allow other operators to come on site should a resident want them to. So 10% are through other providers, Blue Care and the like. We don't like the idea of suggesting to our clients that if they've been working with somebody in the care side, with the home care side of things for many years, and they've built relationships, if they decide they want to maintain those, we're okay with that as well.
So Phil, you're a seasoned marketer of retirement living and private aged care. What do you think of the new customers coming through? Is that the fact that you've got 30% who would just prefer to pay for themselves? Is that proving typical, or have you got just high net worth individuals?
Look, we target to the middle to upper end of the market. We're finding that people really enjoy the fact that we don't have any expectations of them in terms of proving up their capacity. If they say that they don't want to do anything else, don't want a home care package, don't want this, don't want that, happy to pay privately, we don't argue with that. And it is trending for us. I would say even over the last couple of years, we're sort of getting a reputation for people to say, well, look, we can just move into Odyssey, and I get it when all the sums are done and my wealth is looked at, I'm probably not going to get much of a subsidy anyway. So I don't want to go through all of that. I just want to pay direct, and I want to pay privately. And it is trending that way.
Jane Floyd, how does a high needs, e.g. palliative care and dementia, move to residential style care rooms if that is needed?
That's probably one for me, Chris. So if the question is around that downsize from a two-bedroom apartment into a higher area of care, whether that's secure dementia or our care hub, we operate under a license loan arrangement. And the deal with our residents is that if you need to move, we simply amend your license from whatever apartment you're in now to whatever the apartment you're going to. All of the legals and money flow with you, so that when you ultimately exit, you'll get that same deal. If it's a couple, and mum, for example, needs to move into higher levels of care and dad wants to remain independent, then dad will stay in the two-bedroom apartment and we will move mum down. We'll have an amendment to their license, but mum will not have to pay another ingoing contribution for where she moves to. She'll continue to pay care and meals and services, etc., but also the weekly fee on that apartment that she's occupying. So we have that taken up. We have that taken up probably a little bit more than what we originally anticipated, but it's a very, very strong piece to our puzzle. The residents love it because they can hop in the lift and go and see their loved one, or walk across to a different building.
So just for clarification, so if let's say the partner needs to move into that studio apartment, they don't have to make another payment for that apartment?
That's right. So not another ingoing contribution, but they will pay their weekly fee, and they'll obviously pay for their consumables, meals, care, services, etc.
I have a question from David Johnson Lamour. What size of village do you think is required to make this model work?
Phil might have a different answer to us. Our minimum is around 200 apartments because of the scale that we need to deliver within a village, and the support that we need from a care governance perspective, and the investment that we have within that from a resourcing. So minimum 200. Our sweet spot is around 250 to 350, but in a really high demographic area, you could probably go below that 200.
And tangential question, do you have a wealth level that is required?
Affordability. So affordability to acquire the ingoing contribution and settle on that. Obviously, that they need that. We fix our weekly fees for life. So if it's $200 a week, whatever the number is when they move in, that resident will pay that as they go through. Care should be able to cover a majority through their home care package. So we do have a number of pensioners as such that can live with us and survive, provided they have the right levels of government funding.
Stuart, what do you say to your not-for-profit clients who have their mission to service, provide affordable housing, and they're looking to go into assisted living? Is there a price point there that you look at? That's
the real challenge, Chris, with the affordability piece that Byron's just mentioned. And interesting, just listening today myself is thinking about where in Australia can this model really work, and where it may not be able to work, and whether that's in regional or remote areas. Is it just a city-based model that people can work in? Obviously, Byron, you're operating out of ACT there, but for us it's the affordability. So our clients that are looking at that are trying to build in, it's the mission versus margin conversation, and trying to build in how many of their residents can pay a small amount as opposed to others that can maybe pay a higher amount to subsidise them. But there's no sort of fixed price, Chris, if you like. It's each provider looking at what they've got, and I think it also comes down to space. So Byron mentioning 200 to 300 units is where do they have that available land to be able to get size, scalability for that, or are they going to try and make it work at a smaller scale and subsidise that as well? So I don't think there's one sort of fixed model that would suit them.
If I could circle back to the very beginning, Byron, you mentioned culture and the importance of, and this is relative to what size of development can carry private aged care. So if you're saying it's 200 from a financial point of view, and Stuart has clients that may not be able to have the land or the balance sheet or the mission or the population to be able to carry 200. From my observation, and it's like Phil, as he said, he gets to meet every resident and spends a lot of time there. Culture is very, very important for this product, isn't it?
Extremely important. For us, it's the first two things that we invested in the business when we started, literally from a whiteboard just over 4 years ago, was care governance, systems, framework, policies, etc. Because if we couldn't deliver quality care outcomes, we could forget about it. And people, if we didn't have good people delivering that care, we could forget about it. So For us, culture is critical, and in testing times such as COVID lockdowns, etc., is when you really see a strong culture amplify throughout the staff, but also our residents. It's ridiculously important. We invest a lot of time and energy in our LDK.
So here's an interesting question for our audience. If I'm a corporate, whether I be a not-for-profit or a private corporate, let's say I've got 20 villages and a head office and so on, and I want to go into this area, how likely are they to be successful when that culture that you guys have developed is so fundamental?
Depends on the culture of the corporate. We were blessed in that we could start a culture and create a culture as opposed to having to change a culture. I think some of the corporates have got very strong cultures. There's been studies by Harvard and other large universities around the world around how purpose-driven businesses outperform businesses who aren't for purpose, and they studied listed entities. So I don't think being a corporate stops you from having a strong culture. There may be some change management piece, but being a for-purpose organisation, and we are, we're also for-profit, I think really helps to add that value.
There is one last question from Graham Reed. Byron mentioned that more than 50% of residents attracted to the LDK villages are aged over 85. What is the feedback of baby boomers to the model? It might have been Phil that had that figure.
Yeah, just no, to clarify that 50% of our residents at the landings are aged over 85. The landings was an existing mature village that we bought and converted to the LDK model. Our average entry age is around 82 at the moment. So we're seeing the beginning of the baby boomers coming through. We focus very heavily on feedback from baby boomers because that's the generation that's coming through. They're discerning. They don't need to leave assets to their children because often their children have more wealth than what they do. They demand quality, they demand service, they demand good consumer experience and outcomes. So we focus very heavily on the baby boomers.